Hi, this is Karen Allen from Animal House and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you're listening to the Claws Corner.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Claws Corner. I continue my conversation with actor, director, playwright, acting teacher, and musician Thomas G. Waits. His latest movie, Target, which he wrote and directed, is now available on Amazon Prime. And I have to say, I've seen it several times so far, and wow, what a roller coaster ride. What a great, great movie. I highly recommend it to all my viewers. Go out right after this interview is over and buy it immediately. You will not be disappointed. So with that being said, please welcome once again to the Claws Corner, Thomas G. Waits. Thomas, how are you?
I'm beautiful. Yeah, I feel great.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for once again coming back to the show because we have so much to talk about. And when we last left off, you said, Rich, you got to check out the movie Target. It was just released. And I watched it that night. I bought it, watched it again, loved it even better the second time. I have to say, this is sort of like your Citizen Kane. I mean, it's great. It's got very well acted, very well shot. I love all the, I don't know, how do you do that with the drones? Is that how you filmed that?
Yeah, we use drones, yeah.
But it's just such a, like, as I mentioned in the intro, a roller coaster ride. I mean, it's funny, all the double entendres that are in the movie, but also it tackles some serious issues like foster care. So I mean, this movie has everything.
Yeah, it does tackle foster care, doesn't it? And it also deals with the kind of iconoclastic interpretation of religion and religious views, which is a very, I mean, as if sexual compersion wasn't a deep enough subject. Compersion is where you enjoy watching your lover be made love to by someone else. That's what compersion means. And it's I've never seen a film that covered that subject. I mean, I guess they do it in porn. I don't know. I don't really watch porn. But I thought, I'm gonna do a movie about something that's never been done before. So that's why I chose that subject. And I just felt like as I got deeper into it, I wanted to explore these themes, like the Bosch painting and what it represents and who he was. And some of my friends came back to me and said, I can't, because they're famous, I can't write a public review because I'm Catholic. And I was raised Catholic, and a very strict Catholic in point of fact. My oldest brother was a priest. My oldest sister was a nun. I went to 12 years of Catholic school. And but it's not meant to be anti-religious in any way, shape, or form. It's just, I want to tear down preconceptions of what religion is about and get people to look at things differently if possible. And in a certain way, the painting is kind of watching everybody, the way I have the camera zoom in on it, and you kind of, it's almost as if the painting is watching the story unfold.
For people who haven't seen the movie yet, the painting is entitled Hell. Is that correct?
Right. By Hieronymus Bosch.
Yes. And so the story that the actor's name is Nick Gregory, the story that he tells Chip, the character Chip Philip Stoddard, is that a true story of who Bosch was and how the painting?
Yeah, Bosch was part of a group of these fanatical Dutchmen, I believe around the 14th century, 15th century. And he was a great painter. He didn't do that many paintings, but they were exceedingly zealous with regard to the Blessed Virgin. Now, if you don't know anything about the Catholic religion, it's, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, or the Trinity. But the Blessed Virgin allegedly gave birth to Jesus without, it was an immaculate conception. She didn't go to the normal things that people go through to conceive. And so therefore it was an immaculate conception. An angel Gabriel, I believe, came down and said, you now are going to have God's child. So they, different sects of religions, they take themes. Some of them, really focus on Jesus. Some of them really focus on God the Father. Some of them focus on the Holy Spirit, the Pentecostalist movement, for example. And some really get enamored by the Blessed Virgin. And I personally have always been enamored by that. Let's call it a mythological icon. Mm-hmm. Let's call her that, because that's what she represented to me as a little boy. And as a boy, we had to say the rosary constantly. Much like Jews have to learn their prayers during different times of the year and so forth. We said the rosary, our whole family, big, large Irish Catholic family. And so anytime I ever have gotten into a jam in life, I immediately found myself going, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. It just comes right out. And so I wanted to, toy with that a little bit and make it sort of, I guess, almost a sacrilegious reference. I don't want to give away too much about the film, but I wanted to deal with religion as it perceives sex and sexuality, because we know, the Catholic Church has very rigid restrictions with regard to that. And now our entire country, with taking away Roe v. Wade, mm-hmm. which in my view is stripping women of their rights. It's their body. Let them decide.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I really feel very strongly. And, people say you're a liberal. Well, let me tell you something. Without liberals, women wouldn't have the right to vote. Mm-hmm. Women wouldn't have the right to leave the country on a plane. They wouldn't have the right to own a piece of property. They wouldn't have a lot of rights that they just take for granted. Yeah. That, I feel the nationalist, MAGA right is trying to strip women of their, and how an educated, conscientious woman could endorse, this revert to the 1920. When was it? I mean, women didn't get the right to vote till 1918, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there, somewhere around that time. Yeah, I agree with you 1,000% in everything you just said. And I've had this conversation with plenty of other people. And I said, how can anybody say, yeah, I want to go back to that? Like, let's make America great again. What do you mean make America great again? For a lot of people, America wasn't that great.
Yeah, America has got a lot of blood on her hands.
Yes.
We've done a lot of bad karma.
Yeah.
Let's start with the American Indian, mm-hmm. the indigenous American Indians. Well, every contract, every agreement we made with them was abrogated. Then let's go to the blacks. This country was built on the backs of the black man. Mm-hmm. And we hosed him down. We hung him. We had public lynchings. We we freed the slaves. Wow, that's really big of us. And then it took them 100 years to get the rights to be citizens and eat at the same counter as you and I. And I really admire, the celebrities that came out in the 1960s: Bob Dylan, Marlon Brando, William Faulkner, just to name a few. People who jeopardized their careers to stand up for the rights of the black man. In fact, Marlon Brando turned down a very big movie deal just so he could spend a year working on civil rights and donating, I believe it was 25% of his annual income to the cause of civil rights. And still, people want to make a big thing about, the color of your skin. And, sure, we have problems. We have problems with drugs in the cities and the countries. We have problems with it. Every race, creed, and color has problems with addiction. It's not fair to lump people together like that. Every human being has a right to live a free life and enjoy all the possibilities that life has to offer. And am very adamant about that. And so I poke at these themes. Of, how does sex affect the mind? The power of sex on the mind was of great interest to me. And I'm glad that you mentioned the acting, because I tried to create an atmosphere where they were really relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
Inclusivity, making everyone feel as if they were part of it. And therefore, when an actor is relaxed, the first thing you learn in acting school is you've got to relax, mate. You've got to be, relaxed in order to allow yourself to get in touch with your feelings. And so that was my top priority, was to create an atmosphere. And from having been, in so many films and on stage and having my own acting studio, I know how to do that. I know how to command it and control a set. And so I was glad that the acting came off as well as it did, because they were relaxed. They were having fun. If they're having fun, the audience is going to have a blast,
But I could definitely tell they were having a great time making this movie. It just showed on the screen as I was watching it. I could tell that they were just loving it.
Almost palpable.
Yeah, and I love how you did play. I forgot what Nick Gregory's character's name was. What's his name in the movie?
His name's Nick Gates.
Nick Gates. Okay, so when Nick says, "Come on, what's the marriage? It's been thousands of years. Not every marriage." And she was more the Christian one who's conflicted. So I like how you played one off the other. It's like, you know what? I always, like I said, I love the lines you have. You have so many great jokes in there. It's like, whenever I'm thinking about doing this, I'm thinking of my mother. All of a sudden, don't you mention my mother's weight, and I'm just start laughing.
I don't know where that came from. That was a spur of the moment. Don't you dare mention her weight. And he's like, what? Yeah. But it just goes to show you the family dynamics. There are many things that are involved. And I just imagine that this thin, beautiful, lovely model, Jamie, had an obese mother. She doesn't.
Yeah.
But I just thought, what a great, dynamic that could create in a marriage, how we marry our in-laws as well as our spouse.
Yeah. But the reason I brought that scene up was because that was a scene where you showed the different beliefs,
the opposing points of view.
Yeah, and I love that. But then I said you inject some humor into it, and it makes him embrace the levity. So it was such a very, very well written, very well acted movie. And I'm going to say it again, buy this movie immediately after this interview is over, because I am looking forward to seeing what you have next, because and you even make, I'm not going to give too much away because I want people to see it, but just, little teasers. You even made the burglary scene funny. I laughed out loud. And I'm not going to say, I'm sure you know why I laughed out loud.
Yeah. And yet it was I stole from John Carpenter. I'm like, you have to make this a John Carpenter tension building scene, which I feel I did. But then it was funny as hell, as I don't want to give it away, but it is hysterical. And it was great, and I said that to John the other day when I was talking to him, and he's like, steal, I did. We all do. He goes, and they probably stole it from somebody else. So it was great.
I forgot where it was. I was watching a movie and they said nothing's really original anymore. Everybody borrows from somebody else. They just take something and then make it their own. And that's exactly what you did. And I love your style, and I love John Carpenter's style. Did John have a chance to watch the movie yet?
Oh yeah, he did. As a matter of fact, John mentored me during this process. At least I consider it mentoring me, because when you're working on this kind of mini budget, I guess is what you call it. We had one big 4K light and it kept going out. And movie is light.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's no light, you can't shoot. So I'd be standing on the roof, but not call John. I'd be like, John, I'm gonna jump off. I don't know what. He's like, just calm down, take a walk, take a breath, just relax. Now tell me what's going on. And he would take his time, and he really helped me out. And then in the editing room, I had a great editor, by the way, Jordan Santor. What a fantastic job. The amount that I could pay this kid and the amount of work that he did for me, it was a blessing, really. Both he and Dan McBride, the colorist, they deserved, 50 times and would have gotten 50 times what they were paid to do this in the real world. But yet they had the same commitment to me that they would have as if they were getting $10,000 a week or whatever. But I would have questions in the editing room, and I'd say, John, this is the shot, and this is the problem I'm having. And he would go, well, you got to stick with your instinct. What's the shot? What's the composition of the shot? What's the scene about? And I said, well, the scene's about the guy, the young guy. He's got to be the. And he goes, well, you got to keep him in the center of the frame, or whatever the question might have been.
Yeah.
And so as soon as we had a final cut, I FedExed it to him, and the next morning, as God is my witness, he watched that thing and sent me an email, and I'll quote it to you verbatim. Dear Tommy, I watched your movie. I liked it. It was very funny. Boy, you sure got a lot of production value out of that for the money you spent. Do you need an agent or somebody to help you sell it?
Wow.
Love, John.
Wow.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna print that out and frame that. That was really very motivating too, because it makes you realize, like, he's a master director, not just I mean, that movie Starman is one of my favorite films of all time.
Mm-hmm.
He can direct any kind of movie he wants, but to have someone of that status confer approval upon you, sure, it means a great deal. It meant a great deal and gave me a lot of confidence. And I'm very grateful that he gave me that job in the thing. I'm very grateful that I still have a relationship with him after all these years. And, I almost blew that relationship too. I don't know if I told you the story about David Glennon and I were on set, and John had cut one of our scenes, and we were mic'd with a lavalier mic, and we're like, fuck that fucking guy. I can't believe he fucking cut that scene. What a fucking ass. How could he do that? And we're going on.
No, I did not hear this story. This is great.
And John sticks his head around the corner and he goes, hey, you guys, I just heard every word you said.
Oh, man.
Hey.
Thank God he has a good sense of humor and he doesn't take things too personally.
He's a sensitive man, though, and it hurt his feelings, and it took me a long time to. And then David Glennon came up with the best excuse in the world. He's like, John, come on, every movie has to have a little mutiny on.
Oh man, that's funny. Well, I'm glad that you made it amends with Walter Hill. You made amends with John Carpenter, and you still talk to John Carpenter. And what I like about John Carpenter too, just like you, he does the music for his movies, and I love his music. I love your music too. I want to get into that, but I just very recently I went on YouTube and I was watching a concert with John and his son Cody, and they were touring, and it was so great. And in the background, they had the movie scenes from The Thing, Prince of Darkness. Yeah. All the In the Mouth of Madness.
John's got his sunglasses on.
Oh yeah.
Rock star.
Exactly. So did he? I know that you write the music for you and Tony Daniels. He played Frankie in the movie. he sang what song was it? Ride.
Right,
Ride. It was a
right.
great song in the movie. Like the music, sometimes it's funny. 'Cause I'll hear a song in a movie and I'll say, "Oh, it's great with the movie," and I'll listen to it off, on its own, and doesn't really have the same effect. Your music I listen to after to just as good a standalone without the movie, but with the movie, it's perfect. Like you said, Ride, or I had the music up on probably like 40, just jamming that song. It's just,
Wow.
and I love all the. So did you write all the songs for that movie?
Yeah, what all of them except for the first one.
Yep.
The very first song, the wedding song, was written by an old friend of mine for my wedding back in 1987. And I called him up and said, "Listen, can I use your song?" And he said, "Okay." And Tony rearranged it a bit. It's not exactly how he wrote it, but
Yeah.
Tony puts his touch on everything because he's a master, musician. He can. I mean, it sounds like strings. You got horns, and whatever. This guy can do it all, And he was of great service to the film. And I'm really looking forward to doing my next picture with him.
Yeah. Did
I mean,
John
he's
give you
part.
any advice for that?
What?
No, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, did John give you any advice for the music for the film?
No, no, he didn't say anything about the music either
Okay.
way.
Okay.
I told him that I was doing the music, and I said I have to. I can't afford a composer, and he goes, "Me too." That's how I started. In the beginning, I had to do it out of necessity. I couldn't afford a composer. I had to do it myself, and he's good with the synthesizer, John.
Yeah.
So I'm more of an acoustic guitar player, and I play a little bit of piano, but I am a songwriter, as evidenced by the film, and I'm quite proud of the music. And to have, one of my investors say, "Listen, you got to sell the soundtrack to this thing." So we put the soundtrack out as well,
Yeah.
uh, for sale for people to enjoy it. Now the issue is we've got it in Spanish, so it's going to start playing in Spanish-speaking countries. But we have to get, I guess they're called deliverables. You have to get it captioned in each language, French. There's a guy from Holland that's a big fan of the thing. That's like, when is it coming out? So we have to get that done next. And in the meantime, I'm trying to get my next picture off the ground. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we get to the next pictures, I want to still talk about Target.
Okay.
Now, what kind of direction did you give them? Did you allow them some opportunity to improv, or would they stick strictly to the script?
Well, I did have them stick strictly to the script. Yeah, I did pretty much, except when I would hear a clunker in there and I would go, "Is that working for you guys?" And they would say yes or no. And there were lines that, one actor didn't want to say. There was a line he did not want to say. Um, it was Philip Stoddard. I had a line in there, a complete non sequitur, by the way, meant to come out of nowhere, apropos of absolutely nothing. While he's seducing her, he says, "Babe, it's all China." Right in the middle of the wall, the Great Wall of China, it says, "By 2050, China will rule the world." And then he takes her up to bed and seduces her.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's almost like a Woody Allen moment,
Exactly. Yeah.
But I thought it was funny. Yet the day of the shoot, he said, "I really don't want to say that line."
Hmm.
And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I'm afraid it will engender anti-Asian."
Yeah.
And he had a point. He had a point, and I listened to him. I think a good director listens to his actors. You have to keep control, but you have to learn that sometimes you may not be right. And as it turned out, I think his idea was better than mine.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to mention that because that's you and I in the last interview talked about how everybody's so worried of saying anything that might be offensive. You care, but you just went all out with this movie. I mean, you say so many different things that some people might take offense, and you know what? You really, I mean, you really can't worry about that much. It's your art, it's your vision. There's going to be people that are going to complain about it, and those are the people that probably will never even bother to see anyway. The people that like you, the people that know you, and they're going to love the movie, and they're not going to be offended. They know you're joking around. Like some of the things, like you make a couple references to homo, which I thought was hilarious with the cop JJ. It's hilarious, but some people might say, "Oh my God, he's anti-gay." It's like, no, he's not anti-gay. He's making a joke. It's a comedy. So I love the fact that you did.
That came from the actor. When I was writing the script, he's like, the one thing that I cannot stand is when someone says, "Are you gay?"
Yeah.
So I said, "Does that bother you?" Yeah, it really bothers me. I go, "Okay, good. I'm going to put that in." So I have him say, homo. He calls him
Yeah.
a homo. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the word. I hate it when people call me a homo. And um, and because it bothered him so much, I exploited that. But
Yeah.
for the purpose of humor, I mean, and it was. I thought the fight
Yeah.
scene was quite well staged to accentuate it or bring it out, and that's the purpose of it. I mean, it's like Lenny Bruce said. If you keep saying fuck, 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 get shit, piss her, if you keep saying it, it means nothing. They're just words. It's what's the intention? The intention is to make the audience laugh at what they are, And another motto of mine is be provocative or be forgotten. If you're
Yes.
not going to come out swinging, if you're not going to be the Muhammad Ali of what you're doing, then don't bother. Come out there and float like a butterfly and sting like a bee,
Oh yeah.
or don't do it,
Yep.
or don't do it.
Yep.
There's just no reason to do it unless you've got a point of view and you're willing to risk your life and your reputation.
Well, you know, it's funny you said that because I have cerebral palsy and I used to do stand-up comedy. Yep.
Wow.
So, but the reason I bring that up was that I first of all I love self-deprecating humor. I'm very confident. I know, and this does not bother me at all. So I make jokes about it on stage, and people say you can't make jokes about it. I said, why not? And I'm having fun with it. And they're like, if you want to be more popular, you have to be more generic. I said, I would rather have a group of diehard fans that come to see me all the time than a large audience going, what was that guy's name again? Yeah, I think he was funny. What joke did he have? I'd rather be remembered and liked by some people and hated by others than it's exactly what you just said. So I've had that motto with all the different things. And it's funny because that morphed into somebody saw me at a comedy show and said, oh, you'd be a great inspiration to my students. And he works at a place called Abilities Beyond. And I speak to them every 6 or 7 months. I go and they love me over there. They're like, oh my God, you're such an inspiration to me. Now I know I can do it too. I can overcome any obstacles. And they really mean it. They're so happy to see me. So it's just that I never once thought like, I can't make fun of this. Why? It's like, it's just my sense of humor, but I like that. Be provocative or just be forgotten. And that's exactly what
Good
you're doing with this movie.
mate.
Yeah.
Good for you. You've had it all your life?
Yeah. When I was born, I was given the last rites 3 times. They said I would never walk, never talk. And even the doctor said, I have a lesion that basically takes up the whole left side of my brain. He said that, I can't believe you're not a vegetable. I said, what do you mean? He goes, the left side of my brain is almost completely dead. But what happened was the right, for the most part, the left controls the right controls the left. It's probably a little bit more complicated than that, but in layman's terms, but the right side took over for the left right when I was born to overcompensate. So I'm able to walk, talk. I've never let it get in the way of anything I've ever wanted to do.
Good for you, mate.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Good for you. That is just what an inspiring, that's incredible.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And here you have your own podcast and
yeah. I love this. And this is probably like over the years I've been in bands in the 80s. I was in a metal band in the 80s. I've done stand-up comedy. I wrote a book. I've done motivational speaking. And this is probably the most fun thing that I've done because I get to meet people like you, people I grew up watching. and enjoying their movies and realizing how great they are in real life, and have a chance to talk to you one on one. I am loving this.
What instrument do you play?
I was the singer.
Really?
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yep. You and I are friends on Facebook. I can send you pictures after the show, just show you like me with the long hair in the '80s. It was fun. We used to play. I live in Connecticut. We used to play all the rock clubs in Connecticut. It was fun. I definitely had a great time. Then what happened was I realized I was in my 20s and I said, you know what? I'm not making any money from playing bands, but I love music. So I went to Connecticut School of Broadcasting, became a disc jockey for 7 years. But then
Wow.
at that time, this was from 92 to 97. And in 97, that's when all these big stations like Infinity Broadcasting
Yeah,
were
yeah, they
buying
took
out.
over.
So they were buying out all these small radio stations and using their own people, simulcasting. So then I got laid off, and I started saying I need something to pay the bills. So I got real, quote unquote, real jobs. But then I'm able to do all these different activities, like I mentioned, writing a book, stand-up comedy, motivational speaking. So that pays the bills. But this is where I have the fun.
That is so beautiful. That's remarkable. Good for you.
Thank you.
That's really something. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had
Well, it's
no
funny.
idea.
The funny thing about that is because I used to make jokes about cerebral palsy about myself, but I would hold the mic in my right hand. It's only the right side that's affected. The right hand, the right leg. And they're like, we didn't even know you were handicapped because I was holding the mic on my right side. So then, but it was great because when somebody told me that, I would make a joke about that. I was like the Harry Houdini of handicaps, like handicap, not handicap. It was funny.
That's
And then
great.
the funniest thing was people would come up to me drunk. Are you really handicapped? And my friend would say, man, he's just messing with me. He's not handicapped. Oh, if you were handicapped, you'd be the funniest fucking person here. I said, oh my God, they actually think I'm faking this. It was hilarious because nobody knew what I was. But the reason I bring all this up was I love that because people kept on telling me, oh, you can't do this. You can't do it. Yes, I can. That's me. And that's what I like. I think it's funny. If I think it's funny, I'm going to continue to do it. I'm not really worried about, there's going to be somebody out there that likes me. I'm not going to make myself so generic to make everybody like me where nobody even knows who I am.
There's a great quote by the famous poet and essayist Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, "The great man does what he cannot do."
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yep. Well, let's get back to speaking of what you can do. I loved this movie. So you said you gave them some little leeway and you listened to them, which is good. Now, a lot of people say write what you know. Did you write this based on anybody that you've ever known in the past, people you might have met? Did this story come from some truth?
Well, in the 80s, I fooled around a little bit with the lifestyle. I was with some people that was just the culture of the 80s. It was kind of but then I got married and had children and I forgot all about it, so I had to interview some people to find out what it was like. And it's an aberration of normalcy with regard to what is expected in a relationship. But everyone knows, anyone that's ever been in a relationship for more than 5 years knows that at 5 years, you kind of hit a wall. Mm-hmm. And people get restless, and oftentimes they have affairs, and that's really sort of boring to me. I mean, it's so uninteresting to watch the guy have an affair with a younger girl. And so I thought, what if it's the younger girl that has an affair with an older guy? With the younger guy.
Yeah.
And just try to turn it on its head. So write what I know, yes, but what I know is relationships, and I've had many relationships. So I wrote from relationships that I knew and had experience with. And I try to listen really carefully when especially women speak, so that I can pick up their syntax and their rhythm. And then it's just like being a musician. You just memorize the notes and copy, So in a sense, I did write what I knew from the 80s, drew on my past, but then tried to make it current.
Yeah. You did a great job. And we sort of went over it, but the secondary characters were just as good as the main characters. We mentioned JJ the cop,
Yeah.
Frankie. We
Frankie the
had
Razor.
also, oh yeah, Tony Rigatoni. He was hilarious. He was the insurance guy that came in after the burglary, which I'm not going to give away too much in the movie. But it's just every character played a part in that movie, and they were used to their utmost capacity. It was great. And you even had references to Kelsey Grammer's bear in there. You had everything.
Yeah, that's Kelsey's favorite scene in the movie. You know, oh yeah, that's made by that famous actor. What's his name? Kelsey
Yeah, Kelsey Fraser.
Spelling. No, Grammer. I knew it had something to do with school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kelsey donated several cases of beer, of his beer that he makes up there in upstate New York for the shoot. And I don't drink myself, but the guys, after we were finished shooting, they got to, imbibe, and they said it was quite good. It's called Faith American, and he makes a pale ale and a regular beer. And they said, this stuff's really good. It's very refreshing, and I'm sure he uses the highest quality ingredients. Everything Kelsey does, he does with taste, quality. He's got a standard of excellence, whether it's signing autographs or making a movie or making a TV show. He's got a standard of excellence that he adheres to. And, I admire him for that.
Well, we talked about it off air, but I want to talk about it on the air because you mentioned that you might be working with a Kelsey Grammer, that you're writing something that would be of interest to him. What is that about?
Yeah, my next film, I hope, is Devil's Night, which is also another term for Mischief Night.
Yep.
And it's sort of like Stand By Me meets Hannibal Lecter meets Halloween. And yeah, the main character only speaks in Shakespearean verse. And it's crazy. It takes place in 1969. And this bizarre, ageless character, he's over 2,000 years old because he's the devil. And they ask him, why he speaks like this. And he goes, well, I'm 2,000 years old. I'm only going to use the best language available, aren't I? So it's kind of beautiful because the language is my favorite. Most of it's Shakespeare, but I do use Byron, Keats, Emily Dickinson as well. And I interweave it through the plots. So there's also, just like in Target, there's a lot of comedy involved, as well as it being, not Terrifier too grotesque, but grotesque enough and frightening enough. And yet it has a very positive message at the end. And I don't want to give too much away about it. But yeah, I'm trying to get Kelsey to sign on to play the lead. And I'm going after a few other people, and it's all being set up now. I just did another pass on the script, so I'm hoping to get that into production as soon as possible. And I probably shouldn't say this in case he turns me down. I asked John to do the music.
Wow. That would be a great collaboration.
It would be great. And he's considering it. He's like, once you get everything lined up, let's talk about it and I'll consider it. And I said, look, that's enough for me. Like, that's a yes to me. That you would even consider doing the music for my film is a yes, whether he does it or not, because he enjoys it. He and his godson and his son, Cody, they like to make music together. So it kind of, coalesces with his own artistic inclinations. I hope. I mean, I don't know if he will, but if I can pull it together, because now I'm moving up from the low budget status. I'm trying to, and this is still low budget, but I'm trying to get considerably more funding, because you have to pay these guys. You can't get Kelsey Grammer and ask him to work for nothing. And you just can't do it. I mean, they're too busy. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping to break into the major leagues, so to speak, when it comes to financing, which is a whole new area of expertise that I need to immerse myself in. But the fact of the matter is that horror sells.
Yes, definitely.
It's
There
the
was.
only genre that doesn't lose money.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifier 2, these friends of mine, the same crew that I used to shoot my film, they shot that, and it was a $300,000 budget, and it's made almost $16 million.
Yep. I interviewed Michael Levy. Did you work with him?
No.
Yeah. Okay. I worked with him, and I know he was the producer and assistant director on Terrifier 2. But
I knew the guys in the crew, the
okay.
cameraman, sound, grips. I knew those guys because they're the same crew that I used.
Okay.
I didn't know Michael. I've heard his name. He was a producer.
Yeah, producer and assistant director, because he worked with Damien Leone, who was the director slash makeup FX artist. So the two of them really put the movie together. And then Michael has a brother that the three of them put, because they did the first Terrifier. Because I was introduced to him. I love how this works. I interviewed Leslie Donaldson, which I know you worked with on the Diary of Anne Frank.
Leslie, oh
Yep.
my God.
Yep.
I've known Leslie since she was 16.
Yep. Well, it's funny because in the middle of this is how it all started. I love how this show works. I love the movie Happy Birthday to Me. So I was showing my wife, I said, you got to see this movie, because she really wasn't into horror movies in the 80s. And I said, you got to see this movie. The first scene, she put it on pause. She goes, I know her. I went to school with her. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I went to school with her in Canada. I said, what? So reached her on Facebook. We did the interview. She is such a great person. And she goes, first thing she said, we were talking about you, which is talking about Diary of Anne Frank. She goes, oh my gosh, you got to get him on the show. I said, I would love to. I said, I was telling her I met you at the Coney Island Warriors reunion. I said, she goes, don't worry about it. And I don't know if she reached out to you, but I know I reached out to you on Facebook, and that's how you and I, then we were talking about Terrifier 2, and she goes, you got to meet this guy. He's great too. So through her, I have like two of my favorite interviews.
That's wonderful. Yeah, she's a lovely child. I've known her since, she had to have a tutor on set.
Yeah.
That's how young she was. And I played her lover. And one night we were in Manitoba, very tough winters up there. And I was drunk as hell. And I locked myself out of the place where we were staying. So I had to climb up the side of the building. Don't ask me how I fucking did. If I was sober, I never could have done it. I had to climb up, and I'm knocking on her bedroom window in the middle of the night. And she's like, what the fuck? And she had to open. She's like, what are you doing? I'm hanging there. I'm like, let me in.
That's funny.
And her grandmother was sleeping with her in the bedroom. And her grandmother's like, what the hell's going on here? Crazy.
She actually mentioned her grandmother. She said her grandmother used to go on all the interviews, and I forgot what she said to Michael Douglas, but she said because of the Michael Douglas flirting with her grandmother, she got the role in that movie she did with him. She got to play her daughter. They didn't want her for the daughter because they thought she looked too old, and the grandmother was so funny. They're like, you know what? We like her. Let's keep her. So it's funny you mentioned the grandmother, because she said she was used to go to every audition,
everything,
every interview. Yeah.
She always had Granny around, and Granny couldn't stand me. Oh my! She was a Scot. She was an old Scot. Why don't you put a pair of pants on you? You walk around half naked. You do. I said, I'm working out. Put some pants on you. You're a disgrace, you are.
Wow. She doesn't mince words, I see.
Yeah. Granny did not like me one bit. I know you're after her. I know you're after my granddaughter. I said, I'm not. She's 16. What are you? I was like 28 or something.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to go back to you're talking about the movie you're working on with Shakespeare. I was surprised by this, but because you said you've done a lot of Shakespeare, and I saw an interview with you or read it somewhere that you said Shakespeare was very easy to memorize because it has a very fluidity to it, and it's sort of and the way because people were saying, "How can you ever learn that? How can you ever memorize it?" Like that's actually the easiest thing to memorize. I was surprised by
Yeah,
that.
it is. And I still have many of his monologues memorized to this day and could go off if I had time on a tangent and do them because they're he was a genius.
Hmm.
Okay, there are about I would say estimate about 100 literary geniuses that have existed in the world, and he's at the top.
Hmm.
Everybody learned from him. And imagine how many people have tried their hand at writing, as you have with stand up, and as I have with filmmaking and playwriting. Imagine being the greatest writer to ever live. Even Tolstoy tipped his hat. And one of the reasons that he's so brilliant is you cannot add or subtract a single word out of any of his pieces, or it ruins the rhythm, because most of it is written in what's called iambic pentameter,
Hmm.
which is 5 beats and 5 stresses per line. Now is the winter of our discontent.
Hmm.
And that rhythm sort of, it's your heartbeat. Da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum, da dum. So he sort of writes from the soul and the heart. And not to mention the fact that he was a brilliant philosopher. He was a great poet, probably the greatest poet to ever live, and a great storyteller. And his characters like Falstaff, Iago, Antony, and Cleopatra, um, just to mention a few, are, everyone sort of knows who Falstaff is. And here we are 600 years later,
Hmm.
they're making opera. There's a whole town in England, Stratford. It would just be another little hamlet, a little nowhere bohunk town in England. But Stratford, it all thrives on Shakespeare. Every store is a Shakespeare bar, or you buy Shakespeare sweatshirts, or a Shakespeare restaurant, and they do his plays there, and it's all because of him, one man. I even went to the house where he was born. The bed is like, I mean, it's the smallest bed you've. People must have been really tiny. Now I saw the bed where he was born, where his mother gave birth to him, and the house where he grew up, and the backyard where he played. They have British actors that stand around and you call out scenes and they do them. So you say, I want to see a scene from Taming of the Shrew with Kate and Petruchio, and they just go right into it. And, like buskers, they bust with Shakespeare.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, yeah, it's really wonderful. I'm a huge, I, we haven't talked much about my acting school, and I'm running out of time again.
Ah, I was saying that's sorry to interrupt you. That's exactly what I was going to go into next. But you know what we got to do? We got to do a part three.
I guess we're gonna have to. So TGW Acting Studio, thomasgwaits.com. You can find TGW Acting Studio online. I start all my students off with Shakespeare, even if they've never acted before in their life. So you can imagine, you give them a difficult speech like Hamlet's speech to the players. Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. But if you mouth it, as many of your players do, I had as lief the town crier spoke my lines. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hands thus, but use all gently. For in the very torrent, tempest, and, as I may say, whirlwind of your passion, you must acquire and beget a temperance that may give it smoothness. Now, that's taken me 50 years to be able to do that, by the way, but still, I did it when I was 21. I can still do it at 68, but I start them all with that degree of difficulty. And at first, they're perplexed and baffled, and they're like, man, I just want to be an actor. Well, little do they know that if they can crack that code, then they certainly can do a Law and Order where they're like, the body's over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know, unfortunately, I know you do have to go soon, but we have to have you back because I still haven't talked about your acting school. We really didn't get into your music. We talked about how you do music for the movie, but I want to talk more about, when you open
My
up the
band,
Smithereens,
yeah,
the push-ups and all that. And can we talk about one final thing? Because I wanted to
sure.
talk about this last time and you had to go. And it's a play that you directed entitled Killer Midget.
Yes, I directed Killer Midgets by John Dapolito, who is a very talented playwright, and just have the guts to come up with a title like Killer Midgets. It's a wonderful play.
I love it.
And what it is it's these two guys that live in a room above a grocery store, and they've given up on life. They won't go outside. It's too dangerous. People are getting killed, and with all the gun, mass gun shootings, it really is rather prescient. So it's these two guys. They never go out. There's a hole in the floor where they sneak down into the grocery store and steal a box of cereal, and that's what they live on. And the whole set is just newspapers, because what they do is they sneak out down the hall and they grab the neighbor's newspaper, and the whole day they just sit around reading the newspaper, talking about the news. Very existential conversations about how the world is destroying itself. Mankind is killing the planet and each other in the process. So at the end of the first act, a note is slipped under the door, and it says, "Hey, you prick, stop stealing my fucking newspaper or I'm going to kick your ass." And they get highly indignant, They're like, "How dare you?" So the next scene, these three midgets with guns kick the door in, tie them up, and for the whole second act, they torture them and kill them.
Did you have any flack on that from people trying to protest, saying say that you're making fun of midgets or you're?
Yeah, we did. We couldn't. We only got it done as a reading. We couldn't do it, which is really a shame because it's a brilliant play, and John's a very talented playwright. Michael Imperioli produced a play of his called Baptism by Fire, which is also very good. And then I tried to get this off the ground, but the producer looked at me and he said, I can't do it. In this day and age, for me to, he was a big Broadway producer. He said, I can't, we've got to change the title. We've got to change the story. I'm like, the guy's not going to change it. But it's the same thing with cerebral palsy,
Yeah.
It's the same thing with any impediment or any, deficiency of any kind. People are afraid to talk about it. They're afraid to make fun of it because they're going to get sued. Now, I'm not trying to detract from certainly the Me Too movement, because I know women, okay, that have been victims of people that misuse their power, and it really fucked up these women, like mentally, for life, because they were essentially raped. And I have firsthand experience with that, and I'm not advocating anything. Even, in fact, I love women. I even think I'm a feminist, to tell you the truth. My oldest sister teaches feminist studies at a college. I believe in women, and I love women, and I don't, just like I was talking about blacks and any minority that's been prejudiced against. But so to make fun of something is one thing, but at the same time, we must learn from our mistakes as a society with the way we treat one another. If we just all stuck to the golden rule, we wouldn't have a problem, right? Do not do unto others as you would not have them do unto you. That's exactly how it's stated in the Bible. Yeah. And if we did that, I think we'd all get along a lot better. But, I do have to go, Rich, because I have to teach tonight and I have to get ready for class. But I guess we'll have to do a part 3, mate.
We're gonna have to, because we didn't get into the playwright years. We didn't get into your acting school. We didn't get into most of your we did get into your movie music, but I want to talk more about your band. So we're gonna do that. Thomas, it's always great to have you on the show. And once again, all my viewers watching out there, buy Target. You will not be disappointed. It's funny. It's a roller coaster ride. It's funny. It's got some serious moments. Everyone in there plays a part to the best, to their best of their abilities. So I highly recommend Target. Amazon Prime right now. It's only $9.99 I bought it for. It's not that
and it's on Apple and Vudu now.
Okay.
And write a review for us, in Rotten Tomatoes, because we can't get critics. We've been trying to get we've sent it to over 80 critics to review it, and none of them will review it. I don't know why. I'm really baffled. But if people do, it will really help us.
Well, you can count on me. I'm definitely going to write a review, and I encourage everyone watching this right now, write a review and definitely watch it. So Thomas, we're going to get in touch very soon. We're going to do a part 3. I am loving this. Thank you very much once again for being on the show.
Thank you, Rich. I really appreciate it, mate. You have a great day, lad.
You as well. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye. That wraps up the latest episode of The Claws Corner. A huge thanks goes out to actor, director, playwright, and acting teacher Thomas G. Waits for taking time out of his extremely busy schedule to be a guest on my show. Not once, not twice, but hopefully a third time very soon. Another huge thanks goes out to editor extraordinaire John Bristol of Elmwood Productions for always doing a superb job editing this show each and every week and making it available to all. I am also extremely grateful to Joseph Timothy Quirk and Rob Bull for all of their hard work and dedication in all they do to make my show available on several connected radio stations, as well as Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Thank you both very much. Lastly, definitely not least, I need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.